good Dark Knight is concentrated, sharp edginess. A very dank joke at the right precise moment where no one can defend it.
They're just
All
trying to
tightly
roleplay,
packed.
dude.
Yes, it's very it's good Dark Knight is a razor blade. Like it's Gillette. 6 blades in a row, 6 edges down a line. That is good Dark Knight.
Oh man. Today I have an actual penguin, Apollo Van-waddleburg, the current rank 1 Dark Knight and the top 5 Paladin and Gunbreaker, and I don't know if he plays Warrior, we can ask him, but he's also in the infamous Sleepo Cat rank 1 speed team. So we're gonna be talking to him, seeing what's up, asking him some questions, and the embargo was lifted this week, so we will be talking about some of that stuff as well later on. If this is your first time seeing this, basically what we'll do is just kind of chat a little bit at first, and then we'll do some questions from the chat towards the end of the segment. So if you want to ask some questions to Apollo, feel free to stick around and sit back and enjoy and drink a beer. But I'm gonna pull Apollo over now and we're gonna hang out and chat. So what's up, Apollo? How's it going? How was your day?
It's been going pretty good. You know, just got done with tea practice, getting through some Brute Justice Cruise Chaser, getting judged as unworthy. It's kind of how it works.
Yeah. How's Nisi going in T?
I have been read my final sentence multiple times.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
It feels great.
I've gathered a lot of the theroplasm, and exhaust is needed to relieve pressure. Oh yeah. Man. It's a fun fight though.
It is great. I actually miss doing T so much. I was so burned out after doing it, but like looking back on it, I really do miss it. I'd love to go back.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, let's just hop in, and we can dive in and just answer questions later and in the chat later and move on.
Yeah, get at it.
All right. So my first question for you is, where did your name come from? Apollo, I can reason with. The Van-waddleburg is kind of what's throwing me off, and I'm very intrigued to hear the story.
All right, so it's actually Apoyo. It's
Apoyo?
Spelled yeah, and it's named after a stuffed penguin that I have, whose name is Apoyo, and since it's also a penguin, you know, Van-waddleburg, the waddle. It's like a mixture of high and mighty, but it's also like the smallest penguin that I have.
Dude, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's like a double L, like El Pollo.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't correct anyone, and I even say Apollo myself.
Have you ever told anyone this before?
No, a lot of people know. A lot of people.
Oh, okay.
Like,
maybe I'm just like clueless.
It's a trivia thing. Apollo or Apoyo are both fine pronunciation.
Sure. Okay. Wow, I am shook, to say the least. So let's talk about 14 specifically. I know we'll be talking a lot about that today. How long have you been playing 14? When did you start? And I guess we can kind of talk about when you got into raiding.
Yeah. I guess I can even pull up. So I started playing mostly, I think it was March. It was before the quarantine hit. It was literally the March that quarantine hit. Like I had started playing, and then every day I would play it, and then I would listen to the news. It was like, wait, this thing is gonna start, like this COVID thing might be a thing. And then I was like, still like, I just got into playing and like enjoying the game, and I play a couple hours every night to do MSQ when basically the world closed down, and then I had to move back in with my parents. And then it's just like, what do I gotta do? I can't go outside of the house. So
yeah,
might as well just like play a video game and have some fun. And yeah, that kind of started where everything. Then onto like the first clear, I started doing Savage basically the instant I could, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got to level 80. I think the first job I got to 80 was Astro. And then I like looked over to find any kind of static. I looked at a recruitments. I learned what Discord was. I didn't know what Discord was when I started playing. I learned what Discord was, and I was just asking statics. And then there's this one static that needed a tank. And I had been leveling a lot of jobs at the same time because doing roulettes. And Paladin was like level 7. So yeah, we're gonna like go the next day or next day. So I just power leveled Paladin 10 levels, just like nonstop, studied up on it, and we got into remove. Like I had done EX trials before. I think I did Memoria, but it was on Astro.
Sure.
This is my memory of it though. I remember having the power level Paladin for the first day because they wanted me to play tank. So yeah, actually tanking originally was not my decision.
Interesting. So had you played any other MMOs prior to 14, or was like, I guess I'm kind of curious about how you got into 14 so hard, you know?
So I had played 14 like a really long time ago in Heavensward, but it was like during a winter break of college, I just started working on it and playing it. And I stopped because I had to go back to school, and I burnt out on MSQ too. I did not feel as like I felt like I couldn't reach the end game and enjoy it reasonably. Before that, I would spend every single like school break, I would play World of Warcraft. And the last time I really played it was Legion. And I really liked it because I could get to max level, get geared, and hug every heroic. And like get ahead of the turn. Never do Mythic because that actually required like getting guild. I'm sure you're quite aware of Mythic.
A little aware, yeah.
Yeah. But like just to do heroic, and then I could like say, okay, I did what I do, and it was like kind of fun.
Sure.
And I played a lot of healers in WoW.
Okay, so that
also tanks.
explains the Astro part as well a little bit.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, so I would have never taken you as a healer. I guess just because I've only known you as a tank player, and that's all I've really ever known you as. So
maybe it's good that someone told me to play tank.
Well, so let's talk about the other jobs that you play. So you play primarily tank right now. I think I saw you the other day on like a stream or something playing white mage, or was it red mage? I don't remember which one.
So I play all 4 tank. I play white mage or scholar when I heal, and I do kind of like to heal occasionally. It's fun, but I think it's significantly more stressful than playing tank for me.
Sure.
And if I do play DPS, it's usually red mage. I like red mage a lot.
Okay, yeah, I think red mage is. I would actually be a big fan of red mage, and maybe even like try to play it more if it was like flipped. I like the concept of being like this hybrid melee caster thing, but it's primarily a caster. You don't really do much melee stuff. So like if it was like primarily melee and then like some casting mixed in there, which maybe be careful what I wish for.
Wait till I tell you about this job.
I was about to
Paladin.
say maybe be careful what I wish for, because not only Paladin but also with ninjas changes and Endwalker, I'm kind of sus, but
you're gonna have a lot of ninjas who are in their Raiton thing. It's like, I'm in the melee combo, bro. Make some space.
Yeah. So let's also talk about your penguin obsession. I guess I should have probably led into that after asking where your name came from, but I don't think I was actually expecting that to be the explanation behind your name. So why do you love penguins so much? What I think they're cute, but I don't know. So
yeah, I guess I'm gonna give a very unsatisfying answer. I have like a lot of stuffed penguins. Like I have like 4 of them that I like just hang around my apartment. And the exception started in college. It has to do with an ex-girlfriend, and that's all I'll get into it. And it turned
Sure.
into a running joke. And you know how much I love running jokes. And like,
You are indeed a joke master with the copy
yeah,
pastas, especially.
yeah, I love long-lasting jokes. And the penguin thing was a long-lasting joke that just like, I don't know, I just like keeping them around.
Sure. Okay. Hey, I mean, my only real interaction with penguins has been like at the zoo, but
They are pretty rare animals. None of them live in the northern hemisphere except for very, very unique exceptions.
do you know like different species of penguins? Is that something that's on your
um,
list?
I mean, like the ones people commonly think are emperor penguins that live in Antarctica. There's king penguins that are a little bit more north of that, which is kind of warmer actually, because Antarctica is so south. North is warmer. Galapagos penguins. I think the funniest one is in Africa. Like you can go to places like Cape Town or like something on the South African tip, and there's jackass penguins because they sound like donkeys. Kong.
What?
Those are the penguins you see in Penguin Town, if I'm not mistaken, or something similar. Yeah, it has the honking sound.
I'm learning multiple things today that I had no idea existed.
I mean, what's your favorite animal?
I I think like if I go to a zoo, the thing that I'm going to check out is probably like a lion. I think like not like wolves are pretty cool, but I feel like they're not very common, at least in the zoos that I've been to. So I think lions are pretty cool. But yeah. Alrighty. Well, on to speeds and parsing, because I'm sure a lot of people are interested in hearing your takes on that. I'd like to start with talking about more of your approach to playing in a speed setting or a parse setting. You can either take that whatever angle you'd like, if you want to talk about them just in general, or how you approach doing parsing versus speeds, or your mindset, or whatever you want to spin on that. I'm more than open to hearing your feedback on that.
Yeah, I guess. So it's a pretty broad question,
It is,
and
yeah.
I feel like for me, it's I approach it more as like a striving for consistency and excellence. And when I play, I like try and always focus on whenever I'm proposed with a decision on what to do, am I making a smart decision? And this necessarily doesn't even mean having like perfect runs. Like I might be in a situation where, like I'm in a very dangerous spot in a mechanic,
Mm-hmm.
and do I elegantly handle it by taking a necessary amount of downtime and just like I love having moments where I go through a mechanic and it's like I played that well. Like I
Yeah.
was a nasty hand and I played it really clean. I mean, there's several times where you just get bad RNG on a mechanic. Like one that I actually love pulling off really well is like uh getting the South 4 laser in Door Boss. I don't know if you've worked on.
I haven't started that fight yet, no.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the one where the boss teleports away from you, but you gotta bait a laser out, and like there's some ways of handling it, but like my timing on aiming out the thing and like getting it right without losing a DCD is like it's trying to like consistently pull off excellent is what I really enjoy doing.
So the
And
feeling of like handling a mechanic to where you feel like you greeted it appropriately to where you won't lose anything, but you were able to execute it like perfectly how you were envisioning it in your mind, and it feels rewarding to do. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
yeah, that's definitely, and like kind of doing what I can to make those moments happen. And there's a lot of things, like kind of understanding when you can and can't greed. Like all these kind of things are things that I weigh in. It's such a there's like so many different little things into it. Um, but I guess if I just had to approach it is like um just trying to be stable a lot when I play. I think tanks in particular, if you think about what they kind of represent, is like the stability of a party. Where when you know your main tank dies, that's when you really know that stuff is starting to like, and your off tank needs to start repairing the situation, stabilize. Like tanks
Yeah.
are there to keep damage stable, keep people safe, you know, like keep structure to the group. And so that's, you know, kind of how I approach playing tank too. Is just like I may mess up or like not get the greed, but like things aren't dying, or like I'm still like working through it, and I can just out crit it later.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd actually like to branch off of that statement as well of like greeting. Like, how do you separate? Because obviously in parsing and speeds, it's all about greeting. Like you're trying to min-max the fight as much as possible, get every single global that you possibly can in. But how do you separate that from a prog standpoint? You know, how do you split that interaction in your head of like, I naturally want to greed this mechanic, but for the sake of prog, what decision do I make here? Like, how do you make that decision, and how do you balance the decision between greeting and progression and choosing to not greed in progression?
Yeah, so there's a I feel like I approach not greeting in prog differently from a lot of melees. Like you probably know this, like the instant you have to leave the boss, like the first thing that you're thinking in your head is, how do I get back to this boss?
Yeah.
And like I've actually been in situations where that was like leveraged as an intelligent way to solve a mechanic, where you know tiles, right?
Yeah.
And like there's a dynamo that kills all that would kill all the ranged and the healers if they don't come in on time.
Right.
So my week 1 group in 5.4 had so many issues with that dynamo, like we would have 2 to 3 people dying to it every single time. And there was other issues for tiles that we actually switched the range and the healers of the tanks. So the tanks and the melees would actually start on the outer tiles and would be forced out and would have to come in.
Yikes.
And it had so much downtime. Like it was an absolutely terrible strat.
Yeah.
But nobody died to the dynamo.
But for the sake of prog, like
for the sake of prog, yeah. But then the other thing would be where when I have to disengage, I actually use that time to take a mental reset, and I'm not actually concerned too much about when I get back to the boss, especially if it's like a new part of the fight. Like I use it to take stock, to kind of like dissociate myself with like a lot of the rotations. I can hit one button and I can kind of think about it. Yeah, I just don't really rush myself. Comes back to it, especially prog, because when I'm optimizing, like every single disengage and greed is mapped out and planned. Like I know what I have to do to pull it off. I know if I'm gonna make it or if I'm not. I've already mapped out my GTD tiers specifically, so I'm gonna get that greed consistently. But in prog, I don't have any of the mapping, and yeah, I use that time to just kind of like mentally reset and relax.
That's interesting. I feel like I've never like talked to someone who would like use a disengage moment to take a mental break, and that's actually something that I'd probably like to think about more and incorporate that more into my play as well, because I feel like those are needed, especially if you're 2, 3, 4, 10 hours into progression and or speeds. Taking like a moment to just like breathe while still maintaining your focus, I think is really important.
Yeah, no, I think like I feel like playing super tight and getting every greed and not dropping a GCD is like having a very strict diet, and in prog intentionally leaving the boss earlier and doing more ranged attacks than you have to is like having dessert.
Yeah.
Almost in a weird way, where it's like something you shouldn't do coming from a progging speeding perspective, And you gotta, you shouldn't do it, so you might as well treat it as a pledge, where you can just like not even have to really do your job for a bit.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
do you use those also? I don't know like how often or frequent you feel maybe like frustrated in the middle of a pull, or like there's times where it's like you may get a little like upset about a pull or something. Like, do you use those moments to like take a mental reset for that as well, or is it more or less just like stay focused?
Especially, I think it's really easy to get tilted if you got hit with something
Mm-hmm.
you usually don't get hit with, or if you forgot something. Um, yeah, I'll definitely take a moment where if I like messed up several times earlier and I have to disengage, I'll just hit more ranged attacks, or like I'll put myself in timeout. Like and especially when you're progging, your damage quite literally doesn't matter. Like you should be hitting buttons and rolling your GCDs. Like you shouldn't, those are best practices. You always roll your GCDs that up. But if you're like doing a new mechanic and stuff, uh, you should always be willing to like disengage and drop GCDs and spend some time, especially on the first 3 floors as you're progging, because if everyone else is like relatively competent in their rotation, you'll just smash the DPS check.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um, I wanted to talk about this tier. Um, it's a tier that you've had 1,300, almost 1,300 kills in. How, how do you not get burned out? How do you just keep chugging on and like, all right, next kill, let's go.
Oh,
Like,
you have my log page loaded up.
because
Oh no.
these are just kills. These don't even include wipes.
Yeah, the wipe count is pretty bad. And the scarier part is 5.4. I think I did half as many clears 5.4 as I did 5.5. Yeah, honestly, this tier's gone on way too long, and it's pretty. I don't know. There's just nothing else to do in this game. I mean, I, I
Oh
guess
my
so. I
god.
guess maybe to kind of explain more of it and why I have actually way more kills, especially in the odd patch. So in 5.4, I primarily only play Paladin, and I mean, I guess you can like tab into the 5.4, and it'll tell you a different story, I guess. So I had basically only PF pars, and it was basically PF parsing and running with Sleepo, but I wasn't actually an official member of Sleepo. I just parsed with them when they were bored, and they needed someone to fill in on a tank. Um, I'd also parsed with a lot of other friends, but it was this mix of like pseudo kind of like coordinated parsing with people I knew and just like random PFing when I was bored.
Yeah.
And I went and I was really like pushing to do the best that I could, and like improve on myself. I spent a lot of 5.3, which is like the first patch I really pars like hard at, and um said I wanted to take the skills that I had honed in 5.3 and show what I can do in 5.4. And I put it, I put myself out there. I did it. I think I ended up #1 Paladin Crystal, top 2 in NA, and like top 6 in the world. I barely missed out on top 5. And I don't know, that still actually kind of malls me that I didn't get into the top 5. I was like literally by 0.01 ASP. I was
Damn.
just barely behind the other one.
Mm,
And I learned a lot about my personal play, but also
sure.
I kind of like at that point I kind of understood that I had hit kind of a good level of enjoyment with personal play, and I wanted to kind of switch over to other things. And so in 5.5, I really put myself out there for speeds. And like I was given opportunities and I also sought opportunities out. And I also told myself that the moment I was like ready, relics had to be done, so I had to get relic. But the moment I was ready with a job, if I was asked to play it, if it was the right decision for the team, I'd play it. And so this led to a lot of Gunbreaker and Dark Knight play. And I think I only speeded for like one fight on Paladin because I don't think I had a Dark Knight relic ready at the time. So it was still kind of potentially worth it. Though, I mean, in hindsight, I wish I just had Dark Knight ready and started. And yeah, that's actually why I have a lot more kills, because I am a big believer in lots and lots and lots and lots of practice. So when I was starting to work on this, I'd PF the fights as much as I could.
Yeah.
If I couldn't PF, I'd be hitting a target dump for hours until I could like get the rotation. Check logs on every single time, I had almost, how like pianists, like when they're playing, or like music, when you play and like you're learning, and if you mess up a single note or a single key, you have to start from the bottom and do it twice again. Yeah. I had that same thing with Blood Weapon.
Yeah.
I hate Blood Weapon.
That's actually a really funny analogy, because I do the same thing. Like, I played guitar and I played piano, and like even in this game, like I'm trying to learn a new rotation, mess up at any point, it's like, okay, I'll just sit and wait for the cooldowns to come back up. my train of thought's gone. Like, let me restart.
And like I would definitely, like, if we were beating this fight and I was gonna have to play this, I would run the job as much as I could in PF and figure out every nook and cranny, every detail, every GCD tier, just like every single thing I could for getting in, and like have as much practice as I could.
So like, I guess, do you feel burnout at all? Like is that even something that you experience?
For speeds, no. If Slow was able to get people together and we could run like 11 some more, I'd run it 100 more times. I speeds and like optimizing that and like kind of has been my new thing, especially in 5.5, and I really hope that we get a nasty squadron of times done and kills for Endwalker. I mean, I just really want to like take all the skills that I honed in 5.5 and just like I did 5.3 to 5.4, come in Endwalker like crazy. I just want to go insane and smash out as much as I can.
I love that perspective. I'm very much of the same, at least ideology or mindset, I guess you could say, as you, in the sense of like, if I don't have something perfect, like I'm gonna sit there until I get it, and then once I get it, I'm going to keep using that and polishing it more and digging more into it. Like, I hate becoming complacent. It drives me crazy. There's always something that you can like build upon and like strive towards, and it's just like the sense of complacency like genuinely gives me anxiety.
Yeah. I think about it in so I mean, you can argue the skill cap of like Final Fantasy, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You can argue that to death, but I in my personal life, especially before quarantine, I did a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that is like a sport activity where you really understand your place. Like, someone puts you in your place all the time in terms of how good you are, and you can't ever, I guess in like a game like Final Fantasy, like, oh, he just farmed out and he has more crits, but like I understand a lot that whenever I complain about those kind of things, like they farmed out crits, then I look at their logs and I look at the effort they put in and all the effort I can't see, like all their wipes, and there's always an undeniable body of work. I mean, sometimes, yeah, there's like some dead ass runs where that dude just fucking crit is out. He doesn't know how to play. But there's like an undeniable body of work. And I think back to like, I know that there's other things in my life where I have definitely met people where they have worked way harder than I have, way longer than I have, and have developed some serious skills. And it's like, I don't think, after seeing like those kind of situations, I've had an understanding that are like potentially kind of like limitless. Like I can always get better. I feel like in 5.3, like, you know, from when I cleared the tier to when I finished 5.3, I felt I was like 10, like 1,000 times better of a player in every single way. And then at the end of 5.4, I felt I was like 10 times better than I was in 5.3. And then now I feel actually even way better than I was in 5.4 overall, because I can just play any job in the tank role. And I still think that I can do more. Like there's always going to be more growth. And that's why I don't stop playing. Like if I do more speeds, I still mess up in speeds. I could mess up less, or I could be sharper. I mean, or I could find out new details on something, and I don't know what those details are, but if I don't play, I'll never find them out.
A good point. It's also good that you learned like to play your role. I think a lot of newer players get into this like mindset of I am a ninja, right? Like I play ninja, that is me. It's like, well, we don't always need a ninja. Maybe we need a samurai. Maybe we need a monk. Maybe we need a reaper. Like whatever, you know? And I see that a lot in WoW. I see that a lot in Final Fantasy 14. And I think that if people look at it more of like I play my role, like I'm a melee DPS, and then I can flex to Fizz range, like, or I can flex to like a more specific like Bard or Dark Knight or whatever. I think that approach is much better, and it makes you a much more well-rounded player than being like a one trick. Now, obviously, if you're brand new to the game, you kind of don't really have a choice, but it's better for you to just learn how the game works, obviously. But
yeah,
for
no,
end game, I think sticking to a role, like having a role and being able to play everything in that role, is super important.
yeah, I totally agree. And like part of the 5.4 to 5.5 evolution, breaking out of the concept of I'm a parser paladin. Like I very much had a parsing mentality where I was focused on my own damage. What could I do to optimize? So what did I need to optimize? Like very much everything was like solely focused on for me, and going from that point of like kind of working personal optimization to working optimization. It's a very natural evolution. I feel like a lot of people are going to go through that. And especially if you're starting to get into speeds and you want to start like, I don't feel like I'm never going to decry someone from focusing on their personalization.
Sure.
And because I mean, all right, well, I mean, it's kind of like, it's not a perfect thing, but like if someone's getting into speeds and they haven't really nailed down their personal optimization, it's like, well, you're not going to get that great of speed time because you can't even master your own damage.
Yeah.
How are you going to master the party's damage?
Exactly.
So, and kind of moving on is like, yeah, you know, mastering a role, but like maybe the next evolution is we need to do some role swaps, and they say, hey, you go play summoner. Like we need a summoner, we can't find a summoner, and we need you to fucking buy a job boost and gear it up and level it up and start playing summoner in 2 days and just smash it out of the park. And I say summoner because I feel like that'd be the job I would probably hate the most after talking to Leah
I
and
agree.
all the
Yeah.
benching.
You should ask Jackal next time you and her talk about her summoner experience with me. It's embarrassing.
I see Jackal with the fuck monk for time. Yeah, but I mean that might be the thing is like, you know, it may just be a totally different role and just have to go from ground zero to rebuilding it.
Yeah, so you think the next evolution of like being a better player, and I guess you're kind of already doing that with playing white mages stuff on the side. Like, do you think the next step is literally, you know, okay, I'm pretty good in my role. I'm very comfortable on all the jobs on my role. Let's go try some other ones. Let's go try dancer. Let's go try white, like whatever. So You think
Yeah.
that's the next step, or?
Um, I've always, I mean, like I started the game playing a healer. I've always kind of like enjoyed it, but I feel like um, it would definitely be an adjustment. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it would take me time to get used to it more. Um, but I feel like switching between tanks and healers, uh, how you do damage is obviously different, but I think a lot of your higher like your higher level concerns, like keeping the party alive, uh, tanks really do have to care, especially in a parsing, like in a high level parsing slash speeds environment. Tanks are essentially like backup healers in a weird way, where good heal plans don't function without good tanks. And I feel like it's a natural kind of, it's in the same kind of thought space in a weird way.
I mean, it makes sense to me at least, with how you have to plan mitigations, coordinate with the healers. So, and especially in the realm of min maxing where you don't want to have any GCD casts or lose any throughput on damage as a healer. It totally makes sense. So.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so while we have your page pulled up, which of these fights from Eden's Promise was your favorite? I'm curious.
Let's see. So there's gonna be two answers. It's gonna be based on when I did them.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was progging them, the answers would be my favorite fight progging was Fatebreaker. And there's like two reasons. Not necessarily, I feel like, all right, so a lot of people think Fatebreaker is samey, it's just like Protean stack spread, and it didn't really have any like crazy puzzle mechanics or anything really weird. Like it had safe spot finding, but there's no real puzzles in the fight. It was just very simplistic and very straightforward and very to your face. Week one, like you had to make sure your mitts were planned out because like the elemental break, the Protean into whatever mechanic would one shot people without a mitigation. Like that's how it was designed. I think it was even in an interview they said they tuned it very specifically to one shot some of the squishier people game if you didn't have a mitt. And I just thought like it really Proteans, stacks, spreads, those kind of mechanic concepts are at the fundamental core of of like Final Fantasy, and the fact that they could just limit themselves to something super simple and make a really fun fight, in my perspective.
Mm.
Like they built off the randomness. They really made a really good fight and really with simple components. It's like when someone serves you like a dish that really doesn't have a lot of ingredients and tastes fantastic. That's what Fatebreaker was, especially when I procced it.
Okay.
And progging, I guess the fight I hated the most was Cloud of Darkness.
Really
I despise Cloud of Darkness.
interesting.
I yeah, I really so I think everyone's allowed like one fight in the tier that they just don't like.
Sure. Yeah.
Um it was one mechanic that just really fucked with me so bad was anti-air. It wasn't even doing the mechanic. I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see anything. And it was just so frustrating. Like
It's
tiles, yeah.
yeah. Anti-air was. I just progged E9 like a couple weeks ago. I mean, I had the benefit of obviously having the strats and being able to know what was coming, but anti-air took me, and it still is, like I'm still finicky with it. Like it still is so hard for me to time it right, to greet it properly, and like it's just a weird mechanic. And then like the timing of it's based on whether she's like facing out or in.
Yeah,
And like
that's a theme
yeah,
this tier
it's
is
weird.
rotation. Yeah. No, I definitely those. So Fatebreaker was my favorite fight, and Cloud of Darkness was my most hated fight. Once we finally got through Cloud of Darkness, I was and Shadowkeeper. Yeah, it was I guess I can move on to the fights that I hate the most now, and I'll say that Shadowkeeper is the one I hate the most now, and that's weird because I thought it was a really fun fight,
Yeah.
Frog. And the great part about that fight is it was very iterative. Like it would show you a lot of the buster mechanics that, but the first part of the fight was kind of like alone. Like if they could just cut that out, I feel like nothing really would have changed. But then like it started to show you orb mechanics, then it showed you a different variant of orb mechanics, showed you, the implosion, and then it started combining everything in these nice, really cute, iterative ways. And Void Gate 2, I think, was a very excellent mechanic.
That is a great mechanic.
I
I
think
thought it was very cool.
Yeah, it was a very excellently designed mechanic. It really tested, like can you reason about how to resolve a mechanic where you look at it, it's like there's 8 towers and there's, only 8 people, and these towers require 2 people to do them. And what can we do to have 16 people in the arena? Like, I thought that was just such a cool concept that really tied everything together. And then you got into parsing and optimization. You never saw the cool mechanic, and it was just probably the most boring fight. And wall orbs is a terribly excellent mechanic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that mechanic is trash. In my
wall
brain,
orbs is trash.
every group that I've done 10S with, like they do wall relatives, like you base it off of the wall, which orb you go to. And like my brain naturally wants to just like do boss relative. I don't know why. Maybe a melee brain. I don't know. So like I always would catch myself either A, in the middle of running to the boss relative position and then have to move, and then I'm too late because the snapshot's like really early. Or
Yeah.
B, I just completely forget and I'm like, wait, why'd we die? And it's like, oh, I'm an idiot. Like I'm at the wrong spot.
I dead ass remember speeding that fight, and like we did a strat for that where if there was a single like triple, like a healer DPS orb, that in the close to spots, the melee would always like to go to it. And I would just look at it, and whenever I saw that both of the triple orbs were out, I would look at our samurai and I say, I understand when you're gonna die to this, and I accept that you won't make it, and I don't think any less of you as a person because it's just I think there's a low probability chance that you're actually gonna Yaten it properly and get out. And I respect that you're gonna die, and I understand. I will tell your family that you love them. But you better go for that GCD. I know you want it.
Feels bad.
Yeah. So that's all I have to say on 10. Is that fight aged poorly. Like 9 actually aged really well because of you could let the clouds in, and that changed around the second bit of the fight in optimization and speeds, where it became like a very tightly designed mitigation check, and that added some spice, and you didn't have to do towers, so whatever. Great. Yeah. I guess thinking on to my current favorite fights, it is a toss-up between Eden's Promise, Darboss, and Oracle of Darkness.
So just 12 as a whole.
12 as a whole is my favorite. I would more edge towards Oracle if it wasn't gated by a door boss. Yeah, if it wasn't gated by a door boss, there's like issues with both of them. Where Oracle, I think, is just fun. It has puzzles. The mechanics feel really satisfying. Like maybe when you get to it, but how rewind works in the fight, and just is so cool. It's just such an insanely fun mechanic, where like you've solved the puzzle and you feel like it has very satisfying resolution. And it just is good, full of action, nice sequences. Promise, I also think, is a really fun fight because of the grandness of it. Like some of the mechanics have these really long-lasting but grand executions. Icicles, lions. I really like it. But I think probably it is Oracle, because even though like it has a door boss, 5.4 Eden's Promise had an issue with cast locking when you were parsing it, where if the boss was casting, it would have to be doing nothing. Like it has to be waiting until it's doing nothing before it could start its death sequence once you've killed it, to then kind of despawn and then start the cutscene. But if it was casting or doing any kind of mechanic, even mechanics with like a 10-second cast bar, you would do the final blow and then it wouldn't die until it finished the cast. And in 5.4, they had not figured out how to remove that time, that downtime cast lock from your parse. So about 50% of your part, and like 50% is like a low ball, it's higher than that, of your runs were just dead on Prince due to cast lock.
God, that's gotta feel so bad too. Like,
yeah.
Could not imagine, like, oh man, I'm cranking this run. Then you get to the end, it's like, oh shit, we hit
yeah, you can see it. It gets super bad because if you look at 5.4's speed kill times, you notice that there's like these boundaries. Like there's like these rough boundaries of the kill times. A very simple one is you see like 6:51, and then the next fastest kill is 6:59 because there's an 8-second cast lock at that moment. You see like 6:39, and then you see 6:45. It's like there's no way a group didn't get a time in that.
In between.
No, there's absolutely no way. No, these groups are too competitive. They'd go down the line on this. No, it was a cast lock. There was a cast lock in those signs that blocked them out by 6.
Yikes.
And so some of these groups like were potentially better. They just didn't have a run that really broke through that one cast lock and did it.
So that's gone in 5.5, or
yeah, that's gone in 5.5.
Okay.
Now, yeah, you can it'll count it when you have dealt the last bit of damage, not when the boss actually decides to die.
Very nice. Feels good.
Yeah. Feels good.
So I wanted to talk about Verse and Promise. I think I had played a little bit with you in Verse, like a couple times, maybe in some random parse runs, or like in a couples you might have filled. I more or less was interested in what you thought of Verse. This is gonna sound weird. Verse versus Promise, or Promise versus Verse. How do you think the tiers compared, and which one did you like more?
Verse is better on every fight except third 4. Fatebreaker is a straight up upgrade in every single way to Iconoclasm. I think that they're gonna give up on the wall boss that just tries to confuse you with puzzles, because I think they really poorly executed. I think they even talked about it in like the Eden interviews, where it's like, yeah, we were disappointed. Turned out like they had to scrap a ton of different on it, and it felt like a lot of the mechanics were just like missing something, and it had the issues of just being really boring and really solved out and just really janky too. The only people who have a valid argument for liking 7 are people who could multi-dot in ads and like kind of feel like gods doing that.
That felt bad.
Yeah, I think Shiva E8S is my favorite Savage fight I've ever.
I agree.
I think that fight, there are some minor issues, I guess, with it. I do feel like it starts a little slow after ads. But I particularly love the sequence that comes from knockback mirrors into the gaze mirrors, and more in a Foz. It's just like that action-packed sequence. And I have a particular affection for fights that change their music at a specific point, and so that the music aligns.
Yeah.
And that's one of the very few. Is there even another Savage fight that does that? I don't think there is. No, I don't think there's another. You usually only get that experience in Ultimate.
T was the first thing that popped in my head when you said that. I was like,
yeah,
Brood
all the
Juster
Ultimates
comes crashing in.
Yeah, Brute
Like-
Justice, the perfect Alex cuts, that
yeah,
that stuff is still so hype, and like how
yeah.
the music aligns with the mechanic. If I could, I would run that every day. If they could just let you skip to Perfect Alex, and like even if they took away a T totem, I would clear T just to get more T totems to like plug into this machine that lets me play Perfect Alex again.
You're a
That's how much I
madman.
love that mechanic. Like that, just like the music and grandioseness. It was just so good.
I was actually
Um,
talking to a couple of friends like yesterday or 2 days ago about how well they've meshed the music in T to the fight, and like it's like you're playing through like a performance almost. It's like a play, like a literal play in a sense. It's so cool.
how Rise aligns with Wormhole is a very fun. You just listen to, and pay attention to it, and it's really good. All right, so yeah, I've gushed over Shiva. I think it's a great fight. Um, but yeah, even thinking back, um, E6S I liked a lot because you skip conflag, which is the annoying tank mechanic. But the first part, Vacuum Slice, was just such a fun mechanic. It was you just like you were always. It was like where I really enjoyed like super tight greeting. Um, and also like where I felt super appreciated because if you played Paladin, you were like the best friend of one of the
I was
melees.
about to ask about you and covering your samurai to stand in
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
bacon.
And if I
All
was
the
playing another role and like I saw a Paladin come into a Parse party and it's like, am I getting cover? And it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, bro, no,
not like
I'm
this.
taking your shield away because you're obviously not using it, right? Yeah, and like Ramu, I really liked Ramu too. Especially as off tank. The bird is like my most loved and hated thing, and because I felt like kiting the bird during Thunderstorm 2 was the hardest mechanic for an off tank in the entire tier.
It was the hardest
And it,
mechanic for melee too.
yeah, no, and just like watching the tank, like this AoE marker that's circling the boss. It's just all this shit going on. It's so crazy. And it's harder in normal because the AoEs are randomized. I think we remember that. Yeah. Um, but really sets apart Verse over Promise. Promise, I think overall was a good tier.
Hmm.
Like I don't think any of the fights, especially now, like maybe some boring, but I don't think that any of them are particularly terrible fights. Like Seven. Seven, I think, is a uniquely awful fight. Um, but what makes me almost kind of like sad about Verse is speeding Verse, particularly 5 and 6.
Yeah.
I really wish like I was further along in my development as a player where I wanted to do speeds and I really cared about the group damage, and I was like at that point, like I think where I was given where I played, I was fine in Verse for what I was trying to do and what I was trying to learn and what I was trying to work on. But coming back like and starting to speed and promise and like the mindset, and then going back to Verse where if you're doing speeds on Ramu, you don't do Furies 14-2. You all stack there, and if he runs you all down like a bunch of like if he just bowls you all down and you all die, so be it. You didn't do it fast enough, and
Yeah.
that's just so sick.
Yeah. The
There's nothing.
jump phasing, like killing it before the jump was like, it felt so good. I actually never got a 5 skip. But I got I got multiple 6 skips, and like it just felt good. Like the first time that you were able to skip that jump,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
man, yes, like fuck yeah.
I think I skipped that jump once, and I deadass did not crit Confiteor, and I had like a 20% crit on Tome. I got hard carried. It was a terrible run, and I was just like, the one run I actually do skip it, worthless. But yeah, I mean, it was also the mindset of like, I feel like if I went back there and I was playing did right now, I'd just be happy to skip.
Mm.
Like I would have enjoyed skipping for the fact that we killed it fast, but like I guess it was like, yeah, I feel like I would have enjoyed verse more now than I did at the time.
Sure.
That's why I'm super fond on.
I mean, those are good points, and I think something I've heard a lot of when I came back was like, and something that people wish Promise had was literally just the jump skips. You know, like being able to do so much damage and optimize so well. And I mean, for like 5 especially, it felt like it was one of those runs where it's like we've hyper optimized, we've had a really good RNG run. That's how we're gonna skip this fight. Like, I think having those goals to shoot for in a fight just makes it so much more interesting, and then like a sense of accomplishment when you're finally able to do it, and it just feels really good. And on top of that, the kill times, like if you skipped in 5, instant like top 10 parse, like instantly.
Yeah, no, that was the same. 6 was still like really bad because yeah, like you would lose every job was like losing 200 RDPS from not skipping in 6.
Yeah.
5 actually it varied because some jobs had some pretty nice bursts that could be mapped afterwards. Like I had a different rotation. Like if I was doing speeds, I would have mapped out a different rotation. So that basically is like that assumes that we don't pass. But I had an alternate rotation for Parse parties that like actually took advantage of the disconnect to like set up a nice finisher. And like kind of compromise, and like I'm losing a GCD, but I gotta make it up for with a really nice well-aligned setup at the end. And I felt like, yeah, but 6 was just dead ass. Like nobody wanted to see it.
6 was so fun, man.
Nobody wanted to see it. Right, 6 was fun too. Yeah. Yeah. Verse from me. I am a boomer.
Boomer verse boy.
Yeah, I am a boomer verse boy.
So I have a question that I see. It's a topic I see discussed a lot. And I feel like it's a bit controversial to some people, but I don't think it's. I feel like it's pretty basic question for me, or answer for me. But curious on your opinion of parse medians. Do you think they matter? Do you think people should care about them? Actually, I won't even say my personal opinion because I'm sure you're probably on the same page as me, but I'm just genuinely curious.
Yeah, so in a very technical, like mathematical term, medians are a noisy signal on player skill. Parses are also like they represent part of the truth. But there is noise and there's things that obfuscate. And if you don't look carefully enough at the player, even then it's like even from a log you can't really tell how a player is until you've actually like, been in a party with them, notice how they handle things. You could say like you could look at some log and notice like, oh, they put so many mitigations out on other people and they saved so many people's lives there, but that might just be because like they had to.
Yeah.
Other players not see that behavior because they never had to. Logs just tell such a small part of the story, and I think medians beyond that also tell a lot. It's also a symptom of environment. So like if I were to use myself for an example, my medians on Dark Knight are abnormally high. And that is because I purely played it in either practicing for fights, and at that point I didn't even care about wipes or clears. I was just practicing each mechanic. And speeds, and particularly the fights that I was speeding are fights that the faster you go, the better your parses are gonna be. So it was just like these symptoms of environment helped lead to a higher median. So like my medians on Promise and Oracle are 99s on Dark Knight, and that's because mainly environment. Of course, I had to hit my button, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
I'm not saying like you're in a speed group and you get those for free, but like I was in an environment that inflates those, and I think medians are just part of the picture. But if someone says, "Oh, your medians are bad, and therefore you have to do that," it's obviously not there.
Yeah.
Speeds also, looking at chat, and it's been pointed out correctly. Speed actually just generally runs in general in speeds. Are hide a lot of the bad runs. Parses not so often. Like if you die in a parse and healer's willing to res you, you can have a bad run that goes through. But speeds, if anyone dies, like or if you're still like if you're actually down to the wire, like actually kills and you care about anything other than the kill time, single death, single damage down, particularly if it's your death, your damage down, bye, never showing up.
Yep. Yeah, I think I totally agree. Like, I had never seen people really care about medians. I was just heard some controversy about it and read some controversy about it, so I was just curious on your take. But I agree. I think that it's a symptom of your environment and it's only a part of the picture. It's literally nothing beyond that. Like, you can look into it, you can look into the trend, I guess, but like you're still not gonna see the wipes that happen. You're still not gonna see why those wipes happened unless you're like digging into logs. So
Yeah, and even then it's hard to see.
yeah.
You don't know what wasn't uploaded. Yeah.
So I know that you love Paladin. I'm gonna ask you some Dark Knight questions because gotta do it.
All right.
It's my job. I put my work boots on to come to this interview. So, what do you think is the single most important tip that you could give to an aspiring Dark Knight player of any skill level?
Okay, so the biggest trick, and like not many Dark Knight players know about, because I see a lot of Dark Knight players running around. You take your greatsword and you're gonna go into any place that's fine, like and just unequip your greatsword and discard it.
Pain.
Good job, please. No.
No, you're in Dark Knight prison. There's no escape.
Oh my god. No, get out when you still can. No, all right. So, but actually, like you know, if you really enjoy the job, that's. The other thing is like it was mentioned, you know, when you play speeds, like you have to really to be at the high level. You have to be able to be told you're playing this job today, and you have to do it. Like you have to be ready to do it. I mean, if anything, you're the person saying, I'm gonna have to play this job I hate because it is the right decision for the group. And I have looked at it, I have looked at what other Dark Knights can do in this fight. I know my capabilities, which should be pretty high up there, and I should be able to pull it off. I should be able to do this. And so if you're doing speeds, like you have to be willing to play any tank job. And I think my single most important tip is actually doesn't have anything to do with your actual gameplay. It has to do with lag and ping and stuff like that. If you are not able to do full blood weapons, like a 5 out of 5 blood weapon consistently on some of the high, like the slower GCD tiers, like 2.43 I recommend on nearly every fight this tier. And that is the slowest one that most can reasonably get away with. If you're not able to do that, Dark Knight's not really accessible at the really high end tier to play. You're gonna get less edges and buffs. Like even before all the basics, like you can't do that and you don't have like all of that thing squared away. You know, Yoshi-P might like be knocking on my door right now, but like use tools like clip your XIV Alexander and figure out a VPN. I play on New York Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I need I literally could not play Gunbreaker in Dark until I started.
What's your natural ping, by the way? I'm curious.
My natural ping is like it. So the thing with Wi-Fi is that it fluctuates randomly.
Sure.
And because of the rollback thing, even if I kind of like start to be laggier than usual, it still kind of like it really doesn't doesn't end up causing an issue. I think it was like at best it was like 90, and at worst it would like fluctuate to 150. Like I couldn't consistently double weave Paladin, especially macroed things on Paladin,
Yeah.
which I used a lot. And I could play around it on Paladin. I could do single weave Paladin and still pull off relatively deep. But like going into 5.5, that was also one of the better things that I improved, is picking up those tools and starting to use them, and it made my Paladin play very more consistent because I would never clip a double weave, and it also opened up like playing Gunbreaker and Dark Knight. Beyond that, though, just really fundamentals of like hitting every TTD, don't clip, and start looking into the optimizations. All of your optimizations are for other people's buffs, but that's super important. That's what makes Dark Knight a differentiator. Like that takes you from being the worst on paper damage tank to being, in some cases, the best on paper damage tank.
Good point. And I'm actually curious. I had this question written down for later, but I want to ask it now. What are your thoughts? Because it relates to exactly what you were just talking about. So, what are your thoughts on Yoshi-P's response to players with higher ping experiencing longer animation locks? And his response to that question was, at 120 ms, it shouldn't be causing an issue. And it also appeared that they didn't really have many complaints or enough feedback on the issue.
I'm half Japanese, but I don't speak Japanese, so I can't really communicate with him, and therefore I don't really understand what he's reading or saying to us.
Mm-hmm.
No, in all things, so I feel like with Square Enix, I feel like different people manage different jobs. And I feel like there's certain jobs that people are more frustrated with than others. And I think it's just because the group of people who are managing them are different. And this is just purely speculation.
Sure.
And like, there might just be different communication structures. But I also feel like I feel like Dark Knight has really lost a lot of the identity. There's a lot of changes that I really wished I could have seen, and some of them, and none of them got done. And a lot of the the core issues with it, JP players don't experience. I think it's just like a perspective issue, where one of the things I've heard, like kind of anecdotally from JP players, is they actually think Dark Knight's one of the best designed. When my opinion is, I think it's clearly the worst designed. Like, not talking about damage, just like in terms of gameplay time, I think it's easily the worst, especially going into Endwalker. I look at all the changes in the Endwalker, and Dark Knight it feels like something that was made like 3 years ago, and all the other tanks feel like, okay, this is modern.
Interesting. I'm so torn because like Dark Knight's my favorite tank. I don't tank obviously, but like I think the reason I enjoy it so much is how much it relates to Ninja specifically. Because I mean, it feels like I'm playing Ninja. Like, I'm looking for trick attack, I'm waiting for trick attack, and then I dump all my shit in trick attack, and then in the meantime, in between tricks, it's kind of maintenance.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think the one tank that I think is perfectly designed as it is right now is Gunbreaker. I think they just nailed it with how this job is designed, and like every bit of the play, even down to the GCD level, and like how it loops, and how the no mercy windows feel, and the trade-offs between earlier and later. I feel like it's just the perfect, and it's specifically what Dark Knight should have been. But now that Gunbreaker exists, like you can't really copy Gunbreaker. But yeah, it's like I play Gunbreaker as like, damn, I wish Dark Knight felt like this to play. Like maybe a different way of coming around this, like the whole edge mana thing, and TBN things outside of the opener. The TBN in the opener really terrible, but
yeah, I agree.
The actual fight and the management, Like that's a fun part, and like really maximizing your burst windows and doing it in a different way than Gunbreaker. But Gunbreaker has none of the jank that comes with Dark Knight.
Yeah, so how do you think Dark Knight kind of fared going into Endwalker then? Like, it seemed like you weren't too happy with the changes that were made.
They just didn't really change it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they gave it extra OGC. They actually saturated it so much with OGCs that now you have to pick OGCDs in some cases to move out of. Like, yeah. And I mean, the ones that you're going to pick are going to be like the weaker ones, like Plunge, Abyssal Train. Like, I feel like they need to prune the OGCDs because the new Shadowbringer, which is the 90 skill that basically does it's like it's essentially you use 2 of them on the 2 window for every practical case. And it just, why? It doesn't add anything to the kit. It doesn't have, it just takes up OGCD weave space. It feels like if you took the potency on that ability and moved it and spread it out throughout the kit, no one would care. No one would miss it. Like, I already don't miss Shadow.
Ugh. So you think Gunbreaker definitely got the better end, or do you think there's another tank that got a
Endwalker
better
tanks? Yeah, so this is I'm actually gonna put Gunbreaker also close to the bottom, mainly because it was already felt really good. But the answer to why Gunbreaker I don't think actually is coming out in play wise is gonna feel better so it's actually kind of mathematical. It has to do with the fact that we're gaining a 2 cartridge GCD and a Bloodfest is going up to 3 cartridges. And in a 3-minute window, you have 2 90-second usages of Bloodfest, so that's plus 2 cards. But then you have 3 usages of Double Down, which is on a 1 minute in every like No Mercy window. So that's minus 3. So you're down 1 card. And that breaks our current. The numbers don't add up. We just don't have enough cartridges. So we have to use 1 less Burst Strike, and we have to use 1 extra normal GCD. And that actually means our loop is currently going to shift forward 1 GCD every 3 minutes. And functionally, that actually makes it a 12-minute loop, which means it might as well not be a loop. And there are several things that come with this. Like, one is that you just don't care, like that the job doesn't, like, Darknet doesn't really loop.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. The other is you change your GCD tier to a slower or faster one, so that does loop. You probably have to go faster because going slower isn't practical due to No Mercy not being feasible unless you're in JP, I guess. And the other kind of thing is that the new continuation off Burst Strike, nearly every single common No Mercy window, like that was in Shadowbringers, ended on a Burst Strike, which means that the continuation is going to go out of No Mercy, which has a problem.
Yikes.
Now you have to rework all your No Mercy windows. And that, when I initially mapped out and I looked at the changes and I started to map out what Gunbreaker looked like, I was like, oh wait, this is going to be problematic. Like, we can't play Gunbreaker the same way. We're going to have to rethink it. And I really liked how it currently played. What is kind of a silver lining, though, is combos currently in the build that we saw in the media tour are going to be 30 seconds long versus 15 now, which means you can do a full No Mercy window mid-combo. In practice, you can't. Like, you would do 8 GCDs in between your combo versus, like, having to do it after 5 GCDs. You have to start continuing your combo. And that means you can, in your Bloodfest window, you can just crank everything out, and then your combo is like, oh yeah, I guess I'll do that.
I guess I'll do that now. Yeah.
Yeah, that changes a lot of things, particularly for Gunbreaker. But I still rank it due to how much is changing and how much I like the design. I'd still rank it in terms of just how the changes feel lower.
Sure.
The actual rank that talking about stack ranking, I feel about the changes. I am Dark Knight's at the bottom. Warrior's at the top.
The heal master.
It has less to do. So the thing is like people thought the healing was nerfed, but then we noticed in the Mediator build that it's per hit.
Yeah.
And some people have done the math, and it's basically there's no way the current nascent flash can actually the new one. There's literally no way. Like they just like looked at the math. It's like no matter how you play into the current, if it was still based on the damage you do versus the hits you do, there was like actually no way you could beat the new one. It's a buff. And it's a buff that like I think you may miss the aspect of like how it feels to like time your burst with it. But now you don't have to care about the burst into the thing. You just get a lot of good value out of it every single time. And that leads to the second point why I'm really happy about Warrior is now it's a 1 minute job. That was the biggest issue with Warrior before.
I am excited rarely aligned about that too, yeah.
Yeah. Like, you know, now it's only going to be Dragoons, Bards, Scholars who are going to complain. And we already didn't like those 3 jobs anyway, so... Like, who's going to play Dragoon and Endwalker? Who's going to play... Like, sorry for the Dragoon player who might be in chat. I'm sorry, dude. Who's going to play Dragoon and Endwalker?
Hey, man.
That's
I have no bias in this because I avoid Dragoon like the plague, so
Yeah. And yeah, it's going to be aligned on a 1 minute. It depends on the potencies. Of course, like thinking from a speeding environment, it really just depends on potencies for all these jobs. But having it solidly and consistently aligned with the window, and you could put, you know, your 3 fell cleaves, you can put the new primal rend, which like you fucking like yoink around like a fucking slingshot to the boss. That shit looks
insane.
Yeah. That's like what the forked Raiju wishes it was. Yeah. You know, primal rend, like forked Raiju is primal rend at home. And let's see. Yeah, I guess that puts Paladin as second on the highest list. Paladin really got a lot of its weakness.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know why, like, when you said Warrior first, Paladin went out of my mind. And then when you said it was second, I was like, wait a minute. You love Paladin.
I love Paladin, and I love how it's so they patched up all of its weaknesses with healing itself, healing other people, and the Spirits of Fin issue with its HP. Like, it had this conundrum of not being able to heal itself and manage its HP very well, and also having part of its damage dependent on it.
So how did they address that? I'm actually not aware of how they addressed that.
So Spirits of Fin, which is one of our OG CDs,
right,
used to have HP scaling. It just doesn't. They removed it.
Oh, nice.
Completely out.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So they just removed one mechanic, and our gauge base, like kind of our equivalent to like TBN and Raw Intuition and Heart of Stone, our Sheltron and Intervention are now, as well as having more mitigation packed on, like most of the tanks except Dark Knight got. It is going to get that extra mitigation. They're going to work basically the same, and they are going to give a heal over time effect, which basically maps out to giving a clemency on something.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really sick. Damage-wise, that sword combo looks really hype.
Yeah, that was... I mean, I think like the night of the not the Mediator, the live letter or whatever, like that meme came out of like the WWE guy. The steps of like the falling confetti thing, graffiti, whatever the hell you call it, things. Is
like, blades of
That was literally my thought. It's like, oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one.
Another one.
Oh,
another one.
When did they stop?
Dude, it's like, yeah. My only so they actually designed those so that actually really doesn't change the core loop of Paladin. So it's like one of those things where they just added flair to something, which just means they really like the current design of it. High-end optimization stuff got really weird, but the core loop of it is staying the same. What I don't like about the changes is that happens on the off, the 30-second off. So all the buffs are already done by the time those like new things come out. So unless there's a very whack fight, you are not getting the gigantic, like ground penetrating Amogus sword popping out of the sky into a trig attack. No, that's not happening.
That makes me sad.
Yeah.
So do you think that's kind of concerning in terms of like Paladin and speeds, or do you think that, I mean, obviously at the end of the day, all of this is going to come down to what you said earlier, potency scaling, how they scale everything. But like in a theory crafting sense, is that somewhat concerning that
yeah
those kind of fall out, or
in a theory, yeah, the stronger raid buff synergies and like raid buff based comps get, Paladin is gonna get worse. I feel like looking, my perspective, especially looking at 5.4, like it was very dominantly Gunbreaker Darkness.
Yeah.
With some rare, and there was literally the exception. There was a JP player who was able to map out like really nice custom optimizations to match Dark. But the thing is, Paladin also has a lot of its damage based on GCDs, and the other tanks kind of like Warrior also has the problem, but like Warrior is way more in terms of its output. But like if you don't crit Confiteor, it's like almost immune. It's like it sucks.
Yeah.
Gunbreaker's also going to have a lot of these issues too with double down. Like not critting double down is really painful, but it also has more hits to spread out the crit. It has more like kind of data points where, you know,
Yeah.
but Gunbreaker also had that issue. Like I remember like Dark Knight is actually remarkably relative, like especially in a good fight with a nice kill time that you're aiming for speeds and running down a lot of good speed kills. Like it wouldn't be abnormal for me to like 99 down the night, 8 runs in a row, get 99 on all of them because of just how well like how consistent Dark Knight can be in terms of damage, because a lot of it is just based off that buff multiplier.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Paladin, I feel like it of course depends on the potency, but Paladin's always gonna have to prove itself. Like someone's gonna have to map it out and prove otherwise that Paladin is worth via some utility or some mapping of the timeline to show that you can really make a difference. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be that.
Fair enough. I'm interested to see how things turn out. It's always fun speculating and seeing what people's opinions are, and it's really interesting when like the tier releases. Obviously, I'm coming from like a WoW spec standpoint because I've never experienced a expansion launch in this game, but it's really interesting to see like everyone's perspective prior to release and then after release, and then even after like the first raid tier, and see how things change and shift and how the meta changes and shifts depending on what people come up with. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, we can keep talking about the embargo stuff. I know I kind of skipped around, but what do you think is going to be like, what are you predicting at the moment to be the best progression tank?
Paladin.
Paladin?
Paladin. Yeah, I think it's definitely Paladin. It has a lot of get out of jail free cards. I think if you're someone who's like willing to clemency in emergencies, to especially with the new healing attached to like interventions, cover also is like always a tool. Like it can get us, like if we're running and we're dealing with a nasty mechanic that we're not totally sure what it's doing, but if I just like howled and I covered someone, they can't die sometime to the mechanic. Like they're immune to the mechanic, and we can observe all of the actual outcomes. That how many damage downs do we take? What did not get resolved? What killed us? How many damage instances all these different things that we can record and understand. And like some mechanics, like, you may not have actually cleared the mechanic correctly, but seeing the end of it helps solve it.
Absolutely.
Paladin has a very unique ability to get certain through. I think like a big example is covering someone during lions in Promise. Like if you had to cover someone and sack yourself and healer all be through line, like you almost certainly weren't gonna clear the fight in Quorum. But it was very helpful to just like
See the
get everyone
mechanics.
see the mechanic
Yeah.
to its completion. See some of the mechanics afterwards, which you realize are actually just a repeat of the first part of the fight. And then like you see Enrage, and then you kind of have your work cut out for you. Like you know what you got to do. That's also like a kind of a thing is like you see Enrage, and that kind of is almost like a relief. Like you know what the fight has in store. There's no secret.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, Paladin and I'm maybe there's a little bit of bias there. I think earlier on, a really good Dark Knight who is very good at TBNing. TBNing is very hard, because you always have to weigh in. It's like you have your Dark Arts proc that you're holding on. Like if you're progging Dark Knight, you always have to be willing to drop your damage to TBN someone in emergency, and it can get a lot of people through certain mechanics. Someone misses heal, TBN's really great because it just like it basically is that very immediate thing. But the timing on it, because of the shield and there's a delay on it actually being useful, and other kind of issues now with Dark Knight where it feels kind of like left behind on the mitigation. Dark Knight I felt was very good in a very skilled player, but I think Warrior is going to get almost nearly all and maybe some even better benefits than Dark Knight come Endwalker, with way less brain power. Like Warrior is very simple to play, and you get a lot of results out of it with very, very weak thing. And I'm reading some in chat. There are definitely situations where we clear the fight because I decided I am going to be a healer now, and I will clemency the one living melee, and we will solo the boss down for 4%.
Yeah. You just need to be a meat shield, and they can just keep training the boss, and you just keep healing yourself.
Yeah, so like Warrior just like gives you so much value in terms of the amount of mental effort you have to do, and that's also another thing is you want to play jobs that are brain dead, for lack of a better word.
Oh yeah, no, you're totally right, dude. For prog, absolutely.
Yeah, and Paladin too. You got to be a ranged physical for a good part of the fight, which also helps on like a perspective.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I think those are the best to be on.
So what do you think for speeds? What are you predicting for speeds? As it stands, like obviously potencies are going to change, but as it stands,
I don't even know. I don't think people are very certain about it. Kind of through what people have said in random discords and stuff. Dark Knight is actually looking to be the strongest tuned tank as it stands right now.
Copium.
Copium. I am. No, this is Doomium.
Anti-copium, Doomium.
I am sucking down the Doomium on that. And it actually makes sense, given you think about the change. Like Paladin has a change that's purely focused on the out of buff damage, and actually didn't really add that much. It essentially was the equivalent of adding in. It like gave you extra 3G fighter flight, which is our like little personal damage buff. That's actually what the blade combo does. It's like 3 extra DCs in fighter flight. That's essentially what the math is. Like Gunbreaker seems to be actually a little bit more powered into its buff window, and I think it's overall it could be strong. It depends on the values. I just think that Gunbreaker was a little overtuned in Shadowbringers. It had this it just did more damage, and I don't think it really made a lot of sense, but it just did, so it was good. But Dark Knight's changes are really all OG CDs that can be packed in buffs. The 500 from Salted Earth, which is like you can activate it again to like blow it up and do some damage. That doesn't really align a lot. It aligns with like the opener and the net. But Shadowbringer is an extra like 1200 potency in buffs every 2 minutes, and a lot of jobs have their buffs realigned to match with 2 minutes. It's just they really, really nailed down a lot of extra stuff into that 2-minute buff window, which was already the power suit of Dark Knight. Coupled with that delirium change that makes it on every single minute, like you're always going to have these consistent, really powerful 2-minute windows on potentially a meta that's all about the 2-minute window. And with your base potencies, heard through this grapevine, just like the actual base RDPS, without considering buffs, they actually were all really apparently consistent, according to some of the people who got to play the Mediator. Like they found they were pretty consistent across the line. And so, yeah, the tank that already does the best in the buffs, being actually probably one of the stronger RDPS, and then also feeding into the buffs the best, that's a cocktail of really, really powerful stuff. Dark Knight, I think, of course, depending on potency,
Sure.
is something we would definitely test. It's something we would definitely test and work out. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being strong. My sleeper OP pick is Warrior.
Sleeper OP Warrior pick. Okay.
Sleeper OP Warrior pick. If its potencies are cracked and it's aligned on every single buff and very, just like simplistic and has a lot of value, sleeper OP pick is. I think Warrior has changed the most in its damage profile and has gained the most when it comes to...
Yeah. I would feel comfortable sleeper picking Warrior, honestly. I feel like that'd be a good one. So maybe you've already answered this question, or maybe you just answered this question, but what is your biggest letdown of the embargo lifts in Endwalker? I almost called it Edenwalker. I always want to call it Edenwalker because, I don't know, melee brain, but...
Yeah, I mean, the biggest letdown is probably Dark Knight, not having any fixes to Blood Weapon, any fix or things to improve the TBN opener. Yeah, Dark Knight they just really didn't do it. Like, they had work cut out that would have made a lot of players who do the job right now really happy. I don't think there's anyone who gets anything out of Blood Weapon so tight. Like, there's no value out of it. You can maybe say skill distinction, but no, that's just lag. Like, yeah, I think Ablation is probably one of the lamest skills I've ever... I think it's the lamest skill in Endwalker. At least for tanks. Where it's literally...
if I'm being honest.
Yeah. For the people who don't know about it, it is a 30-second 2-charge 10% mitigation you can pass.
Oh, okay. I actually do know what that is. I just didn't know the name.
Yeah.
Okay. You can put that on other people, right? Like...
Yeah, you can put it on anyone. So it does have some value on passing out like a lot of small, but 10% isn't actually that much.
Yeah.
Like the healers are getting that stuff. We're not healers. You had TBN, like, and we're getting this tiny little
TBN.
It's TBN at
TBN
home.
at home. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
Bruh.
Man, it's bad.
Yeah.
I think that was the only... I mean, that's the only job that I really thought about. That was really a letdown.
Sure.
Yeah. That I really personally play.
Okay. Well, I have a couple more questions that we can kind of talk through here in a second. I basically like to open up this part now to anyone in the chat that wants to ask any questions, and in the meantime, while people are posting questions, I'll just work through like the remaining ones that I had, and we can pull some from the chat as we get through them. So like, feel free to either rapid fire these or whatever you want, and we can just start pulling questions as people have them, or if people don't have questions, that's fine too. Either way. So I'm interested in one thing that Dark Knight players do that makes you cringe. What's the like one thing that you look at a Dark Knight log and you're like, why is this here?
Edge is out of buffs and no TVNs. Like, Edge is just like everywhere.
Shooting edges everywhere, man.
Yeah, just like edges, it's just like goth kid edgy all over. You need like good Dark Knight is concentrated sharp edginess, a very dank joke at the right precise moment where no one can defend it.
They're just
All
trying to
tightly
roleplay,
packed.
dude.
Yes, it's very it's good Dark Knight is a razor blade. Like it's Gillette, 6 blades in a row, 6 edges down a line. That is good Dark Knight.
Oh man.
And TBN usage first plays into getting that beautiful thing. But like some comps, like you don't have a ninja, like, you know, you end up using TBN a ton in those things. I think one comp that I did in another speed group, like we didn't have a ninja, so that 1 minute when it was open up and it was like E10 and there was just a ton of tank damage in that part. I was borderline TBNing on cooldown, and like, yeah, TBN is just such a powerful, crazy thing.
Absolutely.
Not popping a TBN, I actually don't cringe at that. Well, I just feel bad because I've been there too. But yeah, just edges all over. Like I see a buff and then I see all the edges, like before and after, but nothing in. And it's like, oh my god, but I have to hit my other cooldowns right there. It's like, no, buddy, you
Just
whack
fit it in
them
there,
all.
man.
Get
Yeah.
it to work.
Yeah, you don't go look at my Dark Knight logs from Uwu. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, so
Okay, on that note.
yeah, so dude, I actually had a blast playing Dark Knight and Uwu. Like it was a good time. I know I was level 70, but Sag.
Can't say I just hated Uwu, to be honest.
I enjoyed it. Like I know it was easy, but it was chill. And I got to do something that I wasn't used to doing, which was tanking. I always think that's fun.
If I did go back and do Uwu, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't tank, you said?
I wouldn't tank it. I
Okay.
wouldn't tank it. I'd do something else. Probably healer. I feel like healer would be a nice experience. Because, I mean, they actually have to use their brains.
Pain.
Yeah. Like, no.
Ugh.
No. You know, like Titan jails? You know,
Yeah.
this is the best strat for Titan jails, right? Be main tanking.
Just
You just
do
be
your-
main tank.
yeah,
You
you
can't get
just-
targeted.
do your job, yeah.
Yeah, you just like
Nothing to
I see
do,
all
bro.
these jails and I see like people go and they make like some weird triangle with their
Like,
jails.
I don't know what they're
and then,
doing, man. I cleared
I'm
the whole
just
raid.
like-
I don't know what they're doing.
hey guys, what are y'all up to? Yoink, lion slowed. The Discord I was in the group that I did it, my nickname in the Discord was Landslode. I am
Oh.
really bad at landslide.
Oh, dude, I think there's probably a clip out there of like, there's this one Titan pull or Uwu pull, and we got the Titan, and I didn't know at the time that I could be targeted as the tank who was main tanking at that point. I didn't know I could be targeted by what the landslides or whatever the circle things on the ground are called. And like I'm
Oh.
just like mentally prepping in my head, like, okay, I got a mitt here. There's gonna be a tank buster later. I'm gonna have to dodge all these little things. My brain's like not thinking about this mechanic at all. And I like run through the boss to like bait the frontal cone out into the wall. And then the party's supposed to like rotate clockwise and I'm supposed to go counterclockwise or whatever. And I get the circle bait on me. I'm like freaking out because
I think that means someone had to die.
I'm assuming that's what happened. Yeah, because like I even to this day I didn't know what happened, and I was just freaking out because I don't tank. I don't know how to like save a pull as a tank. I'm just here to have fun in Uwu on a class I don't play. So
No,
that
you
was
just get-
that was wild.
Yeah, Uwu was. I think the only mechanic I enjoyed in Uwu was Annihilation. It was the only mechanic I liked.
It was definitely an easy fight, but I don't know. It was nice. That was another fight as well. The music was cool. Like last phase, how the music lined up with the mechanics was just beautiful.
Okay,
I
there's
loved
the counterpoint though. That's the one thing I also dock Uwu point for. Depends on when you put suppression,
it.
because you can push suppression at different
True.
times, so you can
Actually,
desync the
good
music.
point.
Yeah. Now, especially Annihilation. When the landslides come out in Annihilation, the music, or actually no, it's the sequence before Annihilation. Like the musical sequence of like that double landslide thing in the like the kind of intermission before Annihilation.
Hmm.
Man, it's just like this kind of like this kind of raining beat. Ah, it's just good.
Yeah, that was well done.
But big fat tacos.
Fat tacos.
Uh,
Uh, um, I'll still give people some time, put some questions in when they have them. But I'm gonna keep going on. So, what separates a good tank from a great tank? As a melee player, you might know my opinion on that, but I'm curious as to what you think.
yeah, I feel like you're probably gonna say solid boss positioning and like very
Yes,
consistent movements.
consistent movement.
Um, yeah, so I feel like that's one of the easier things. You
Hmm.
watch other tanks bosses, and I think there's like especially very few like hyper skill checks on tank movement. This tier versus the previous one. I think like you remember the North Spear greed where you pulled Ramu into the North Sphere. You literally made a video about it, and I remember doing that. And there's like dead ass like 4 tanks on the data center who could do that. Um, or doing like moving Shiva during biting or driving frost. Like I'm sure we've all had experience where the main tank doesn't move it well, and we all have to drop a global during biting or
That was
driving frost.
actual pain.
That yeah, I think yeah,
That was
and
actual pain.
um real pain. But I think this tier that doesn't have. I mean, it's like some tanks are just really solid at positioning bosses. I think this tier, given all the extra damage, spot mitts. Spot mitts are something I've noticed. So I actually I said work as a log reviewer for like the Crystal ER Parsers Discord.
How much do they pay you?
Um, about 350. Uh, but one thing that I don't really require this, but I always like appreciate this is like mitigations that go on people who aren't the main tank or themselves. Like if I see a TBN that goes out on someone else, I see, okay, wait, this person is doing something here. Is this reactive? Is this a strat? I'll like look into it. A lot of being good with your mitigation kit. I know in speeds, like I'm pretty communicative about like, hey, this is where tank mitts are going. Like this is what we're reprising. Do we need to move this? Is it necessary here? Is this critically essential? It could be even better here. Some speed strats deadass require spot mitts. Um, like I know that I have to spot mid a certain person on a certain mechanic. It got to the point, I think it was basic relativity in Oracle, where the healing plan was so tight that when I was playing on Gunbreaker, I would have to Heart of Stone the ranged physical and Aurora the red mage for us to consistently live that mechanic. And I had to get those out every single time at the same time. And the Aurora actually was GCD like mapped from the opener to the end of it to maximize usages to come out exactly at the right point to get enough Aurora ticks onto the red mage to make sure they would live no matter what.
That feels good. That's gotta feel good. Like
it felt really good,
yeah.
and when I forgot it, I would just say, I hope you didn't get fire last, buddy.
Oh, like the E6S meme of like having your melee stand inside the first chariot mechanic with the tethers.
Oh yeah.
And it's like you had to give them like everything. Like I think you needed like TVN, hard light, or stone, whatever the hell. Like you had to be topped. I had to shade shift. I had God knows how many shields I had on me. But if I was missing anything, I was dead. Like easy. So,
Yeah, I think and yeah, like some super tight, like I know, like some fights door boss where, spot mitting people is very important on mechanics. Reactively or planned. Like I know when I was speeding with Sleepo Cat, I had 3 TBNs planned on X, like 3 spec'd out TBNs for Xu during Titan Junction. And eventually I was able to cut out one of those and make it like a spot mitt on a random person based on whoever like may have missed a heal. when I think we figured out some of the healing and made sure people like actually wouldn't miss a lot of the soil ticks. But yeah, initially it was like I was very specifically timed 3 TVNs. Like I had to map out exactly when the TVNs would expire and make sure it was like right before the AoE snapshot so that I could get them and not lose any burst damage. And yeah, there was just like TVNs mapped out everywhere, spot mitts. Like I got to the point at speeds where I had planned spot mitts. Like I had planned moments in the fight where I know I can spot mit someone, and and it's gonna be critical. And like it could save a run, and I had to like keep my eyes open on who's gonna be the spot mit that run, who like may have missed a heal, who just maybe got high rolled. I think that really separates like tanks who are just like way beyond the damage. Like they've ascended way beyond their rotation, and they're looking at literally everything they can do to make the runs.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that something that I really appreciated doing in Mythic Plus and WoW is like how much nuance there was in a good player in their job versus a great player in their job. Like people that know how to use their entire kit, they know how to use it effectively. They're not just using it to use it. They have a really good raid awareness or group awareness, and they're able to, like you were saying, move beyond just pressing 1, 2, 3 and move more towards pressing 1, 2, 3 and also assisting their party. I think that's just awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely just using utility. I've
Die
definitely
so soon. Thank you so much.
Subs. Oh, I got a tier 1 sub. Yay.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
I hope you don't die so soon.
Yeah. Again, we're open for questions for Apollo, so feel free to leave them in the chat if y'all would like. I'm gonna keep asking questions, but
I see
don't
this
bother
one
me.
person, this one Tyci, who asked, "What's feint?" Feint.
Oh, who asked that? I don't know who asked that.
It's a 90-second cooldown ability on a melee that usually just stays in the ability book.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's the feint. Juked out. It's not there.
Yeah, I actually don't even think I've seen that ability before. They must have added that in Endwalker, because I can't find it anywhere, and like I know we're progging and people keep telling me to use it, but I don't think it's out yet, so I'll keep an eye out for that. Let's talk week 1.
Yeah, let's do it.
Are you excited?
I want it to be as done as possible. I'm excited to do it.
I'm just ready, dude. Like, I'm ready for this tier to go. I guess if I had to ask a question about week 1, like, what are you planning? This is gonna be so weird. What are you planning on like eating / drinking during week 1 prog? Because Gwil and I were actually hanging out in Discord, and we were talking like, how do we plan on like ordering food and like eating food if we're gonna be like raiding all day? Like, we don't want to cook anything. So do you plan on like meal prepping or?
All right, sorry, I'm just shit posting in Twitch chat.
No, you're fine.
So all right, for everyone who might not be super aware, Tyci and I are in the same week 1. Sleepocat has a week 1 group that's going, and our goal is like loosely, it is world prog. Like we want to get done in the first 2 days and smash out the whole. Like originally the thing was like we really didn't want to go after Christmas. We really don't want to keep playing after Christmas, and eventually that evolved to us kind of being really ambitious. I really love how ambitious our goal is, and we're practicing like 4 days a week for it. We've even recruited, Ninth to help us like who are gonna like kind of oversee and like help us with strats and call outs and like just generally like fill in the gaps in what we can do. So we're taking this like super seriously, and that has me so excited. And onto the food thing. Yeah, definitely there's gonna be a lot of DoorDash and like prepped meals. But I feel like I'm definitely gonna get lazy and just like DoorDash a lot.
Yeah.
But have I told you about the poke?
No.
Oh man, I have gotten.
Elaborate.
So I got like a DoorDash poke bowl, and you know it was like my girlfriend and I at my place were watching like Squid Game, and we were just like, dude, I don't want to make something for us, so I'm just gonna get uh some poke, and it came in and it was shit. It was just not very good. Like the fish just did. I guess it's like it had an overly fishy taste, and
Yeah.
it just like wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And so I just like I can't order from this place again, but there's no other poke places in the area, and I really love poke. Like look at this. Look at the penguin. Penguins would like poke. It's a little impure on the fish scale, but it is canonically closer to penguin food than it is human food.
I'm convinced you're just a giant penguin at this point, so I don't know.
Yeah. So it's there. And so what I had done, I had like watched YouTube videos on making poke and like where to find good fish, and then I figured out there's like a fish market that's literally like down the street and around a corner. And so I am able to just like pick up like a fillet of salmon, costs like $10. I can make 2 servings of poke from it. So it's like $5 a fish, as opposed to paying like $15 for like a large Pokeball. This is a lot of fish. It's actually really good. So probably on our breaks, I'm gonna like pop to the store, get that, and like I can have everything else here. I have the rice all prepped.
Yeah.
Making rice super easy.
Yeah.
Everything else super easy. And it's like I'm not even picky on the sides. It's just like rice and fish. Delicious.
I love
I'm a
seafood.
purist.
I live in Kansas though, so like kind of sus getting seafood up here.
Um,
Yeah, I think there was a question from Kalita that says, "What's your victory speech going to be after Sleepo Cat gets world first?"
I'm probably, if we actually do get world first, I'm gonna go sleep. I'm gonna go to sleep instantly. I'm just like, you know, because we would have probably like gamed our fucking hearts out, and I think all of us would just die.
I would be way too hyped. Like my adrenaline would be through the. I would be able to stay up for another 24 hours. I don't know.
I think the first thing we would do is we would document our strats and figure out what to name them. And
Penguin,
like try and get
Penguin 9 or Penguin 1S is what P1S stands for.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a super. I honestly, my personal thing is with week 1, and this may come off as really weird because I know a lot of people think the week 1 kind of like experience is super cool, and I implore people, if you're really looking to play some like exclusive content of this game, week 1 is great. Yeah, week 1 is great for like a very exclusive experience where not many players get to do that hardcore week 1 experience. But for me, it's a means to an end because what I really love to do is optimization and that stuff. And getting the week 1 clear done is important for getting that gear done and getting that gear ready so that we can start speeding and optimizing. And it's there, yeah. So it's actually a means to an end where if we do great, I'd love it. If we get it clear done by the time we need it or by Christmas, everyone made our goals, I'm also fine with that. I guess it's like as long as we get the tier done fast enough, it's a win no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. I told Gwill because I think Gwill and I had like this. We never really like talk much, but we had like talked in Discord, kind of like we're doing right now. We were just like shooting the shit, and it came up of like, what if like we ended up randomly getting like world first? What would you do? And I was like, I would literally fly all of you guys out here and have a party with you all. This is what I told him. It's like, we're gonna have a fucking rager.
That would be actually kind of nutty. All right, time to sabotage us for seconds so I don't have to beat any of you.
Yeah.
Oh
Just show up
man.
in a giant penguin costume.
Penguins are on a no-fly list. It's kind of hard to transport a penguin on a plane.
We'll work something out. Don't worry
We'll
about
work on it. We'll work on it. Yeah.
it. To answer Xu's question real quick, I believe the plan is to stream Frog. That's the tentative plan, at least. So, it could change, but I think that's the tentative plan. And then another question from Kalita: who are the tanks on Crystal that you've most looked up to / were inspired by / reviewed logs of when you were getting into parsing? Now that you are most of the tank senpai.
Yeah. Okay, that's a really good question. So I guess a lot of that, like a lot of the parsing development, like kind of like my developmental part is in 5.3, which leading to another conversation is why I think odd patches are really important for newer players. Back then I really didn't have a Paladin player that I primarily like looked at and kind of like, okay, I reviewed their logs. I actually didn't review that logs that much, and I had a lot of idiosyncrasies when I played back then. Like, and I still do now. I have a very large amount of weird things that I do that I didn't pick up from anyone else, and I just happen to do.
Sure.
Until I started to look at specific logs, start to understand that. Paladin, I guess, is like, I don't know, in that tier, like, you could just follow the balance spreadsheet. Paladin is one of the most documented and best documented jobs in the entire game. The amount of documentation. But then to actually pick out specific players who I knew were like playing at the time, and I kind of like looked at like kind of people who I could glean a lot of leagues on who had been playing longer than me. It would be Arion I played with occasionally. It was like that was one of the experiences where I got to see them do stuff and like do things super consistently. He's an interesting fellow. Ashelia. Shelia was playing back then and also like really pushing hard and like I think he was like a few steps ahead of me in terms of where he wanted to be and what he was doing. And I was like, okay, wait, that might be something I might want to do. Alita I played with a lot, and or like not a lot, but like it was like, okay, this is someone that there's a skill level here that I know. He's in chat, so I'm not gonna say more than that. But I mean, I think that was what he wanted to hear out of all of this.
Pat on the back, yeah.
Yeah, that's a pat on the back. And I want to say one last person. I want to say Phoenix. Not because I actually looked at his logs, but it's because he asked me a lot of questions. And I think in this game, answering questions on how you play is almost better than asking questions on how.
Yeah.
Having someone question why are you doing a specific thing is super important, and it makes you make sure like you really nail down your details. And so I really like it when people ask me, hey, how are you doing this specific, like very specific, very targeted, trying to understand why you're doing a specific thing. I really like this question. He asked a lot of them, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Like, if someone asks you why, and then you're not able to answer why, it's like, well, maybe this isn't what I should be doing. Like, I can't tell you why I'm doing something. Like, maybe I need to rethink what I'm doing here. It was kind of the same thing when Jack and I found out about the Doton meta that JP was doing. It's like, why are they doing that? Holy shit, this is actually optimal.
Actually, that brings up there was a JP player that when they did the log dump, there was the player that was the exception to the rule on paladins and speeds 5.4, and I looked at their logs, and I'm like, fucking holy shit. They did like they had a separate mapped out rotation for yeah. It was an Ariel Mazov. Um, they had some stuff that I had talked to them very briefly in the balance, and they just like posted a set of images for like a different Paladin rotation, and just like, isn't this better? And they didn't reply at all. And a lot of us spent some time to map it out. It's like, yeah, it's actually is very minorly better to do it like this, and it's like left. Or like Diamond DX is actually a very weird fight with a lot of weird downtime,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I had like a weird rotation I worked out, and then the Balance Mentor and Ariel just came in and just smashed it out with two very different approaches, but just like a much better rotation for the two different approaches and two different goals that the rotations were meant to achieve. They had a fantastic rotation that they were basically the only one to do it that involved getting your Requiescat window immediately for the prismatic drop. And like it was at the point where they were triple weaving, they were doing Holy Spirits, and they just like ended on Confiteor. It was like almost basically like you do just one Holy Spirit and you just nuke a Confiteor. And like I looked at it, it's like, dude, no other tank could beat that. That's insane. And then the other paladins were just like they were just following the spreadsheet, never assumed for some fast kill time, and they weren't setting up the earlier rec for later. And so they were doing something that was optimal until like you started getting fast. And I was just like, okay, they were someone who basically had every trick mapped out on what they were gonna do, and like were able to solve things. They played 8 EPS specific Paladin in like 12 like part 2. Like they figured out they were forced to do extra GCDs to do the uptime. And it, like I say forced because it kind of like maybe Samurai, sometimes there's an extra you get that's kind of uncomfortable, and it forces you more along your rotation than you really want. And Paladin had the same issue in 12 part 2, and they had a pretty creative solution to that. It was just a lot of really interesting stuff that looking at their logs and stuff is like, okay, yeah, there's a level there.
Yeah.
That I mean, I kind of said it before, it's like there's levels to this, and yeah, I think I still have some more levels to do, and that's why I keep playing.
Yeah, and it's the people that are able to like think outside the box. Like, I think that was one of the things I struggled with initially on Ninja was like, okay, this is what I have to do in Trick Attack, and I always like try to do it in this order because that's what my muscle memory does. But that's like staying in the box and not pulling yourself out and being like, well, what if I move things around in Trick to better align with like raid buffs, like Embolden is a good example of like, if I'm going to use a GCD in Trick, I want to use it early so that I'm getting the higher potency from Embolden. Or does that even matter in the first? So like being able to think outside the box and not just go through your routine, I think is really important. And it's really cool to see, especially like, I feel like JP always comes up with some crazy ideas that it's just like, holy shit, how did we never think of this? So
Yeah, no, creativity is, especially I think at the highest levels, creativity starts important.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anyone who does like the highest level, who's at like really the peak of almost anything that doesn't have some level of creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What order are you leveling jobs in Endwalker? And are you going to level all of them or just a few? And if so, which ones?
Paladin first, then as many others as I can get. Probably I won't do the altar, like the alt jobs like healers and red mage and other things until later. And first time I'm gonna watch on my alt, I will skip. That's the next question. I do appreciate the story. I do like the story quite a bit. And I think I'm gonna have to take my time anyway with it because my parents are in town when Endwalker launches. So I'll just kind of take it easy on that.
There's no real need to rush, in my opinion, either. It's like you have plenty of time to get to where you need to be.
Yeah.
Is there any chance we can watch the story stream on all? Yeah, so for those that don't know, Apollo streams on an ultra wide, like a gamer.
Yeah, I stream. I have so many issues in my streams. I think like a lot of the recent ones had this weird like buzzy audio. I don't know. I stream mostly for VOD storage.
Mhm.
I'm very, yeah. Um, that's why it's not for you. It's,
Hey man, I
yeah.
I don't blame you. Do you think playing on an ultra wide gives you a better advantage? That's a
Oh,
good question.
definitely. It's yeah. There's a lot of perspective things that pick up on with an ultra wide. Like you can rarely miss certain details.
You five head the
Um,
mechanics.
yeah. Especially a lot of mechanic. Uh, Shiva Junction is definitely one where I want to see what everyone else is doing, how people are starting to coalesce with their tethers, because there's no very defined, like there's a general system on where you take your tether, but there's no real force strict order. So you can see a lot of different permutations, how things are starting to go. So, I really like an ultra wide. So I can almost see all 8 players and like how do I feel like they're gonna start moving. It's super good.
Yeah, I've actually like I've been pretty envious watching people stream slash play on an ultra like an MMO on an ultra wide. It's like, man, that seems so cool. At least to me personally. And I actually looked into getting an ultra wide like about 3 or 4 months, maybe half a year ago at this point. I don't know. Time's flying. It feels like.
Technically my ultra wide's for work. That's my story. I stick to it.
Oh my god. Well, I looked into it because like I thought they were a cool thing for MMOs especially, and it's just like I never pulled the trigger. Like I have 3 monitors set up and it works really well, and I'm too lazy to redo all that shit. So, but yeah, I personally don't have any more questions. If anyone else in the chat has any more questions, feel free to take a stab. For those that are interested, this is a link to Apollo's Twitch. Y'all can go check him out whenever he streams.
Yeah, it's all old stuff now. Actually, I haven't streamed in quite a bit. I have some recorded VODs. Um,
But
actually
yeah,
had some questions that I kind of wanted to ask you
oh,
because
go
like
for
we're
it.
on the Endwalker.
Yeah, go for
Um,
it.
I mean, what are you super excited about in Endwalker?
I think the thing I'm most excited about is just like playing again. Like, I know that's really basic answer, but like the speed environment there, that I guess that's it. Like being in a speed environment specifically and a prog environment specifically, where that environment is progression oriented. And I say that in the sense of like, if we're in prog, the team's focus is prog. Like, there's no personal relations in the decision to our group strategies and how we handle things. And like the same thing with speeds. Like, I'm going to play whatever class I need to play that's best for the team. Like, even if it's a class that I hate, and I like being in an environment like that where it's team focused and not individual focused. And I think that's like what I'm so hyped for, because when I was playing WoW, like in a 20-man raid environment, you're unless you're in like a top 5-10 guild in the world, like you're not going to there's not going to be all 20 people on the same page of we're here for each other, we're not here for ourselves, you know? And I feel like the team that we have going into Endwalker is very much the mindset of like we're here for each other and we're not here for ourselves. And I think that that's just like that's amazing, and it's hard to find, and it really motivates me to push hard and make sure that I give y'all the best thing that I can give.
Yeah, no, I so a lot of that. I really like the team that we have going into Endwalker. Regardless of how things play out, I feel like these moments of like building up have been super exciting.
Hmm.
Um,
And
yeah.
I wish I could like I would when because I normally stream like our progression, our prog practice stuff, and like I wish that like I could be more transparent in like the stream and like kind of show more. It's more like I'm there to practice, right? Like when I'm streaming those, like I'm kind of doing what you were saying, right? Like I'm not there to stream like for people, which may sound selfish. Like I'm there to practice with my team and work with my team. But like I feel bad that those streams are kind of boring, but like that's what matters to me, right? Like my team matters first, and like achieving the goals that we set forth matters first. And I like that shit gets me so excited to think about and talk about. I talk to my girlfriend about it all the time. Like I'm so excited to just get back in and start raiding again, and knowing that like I have other people that can lean on me, or I can lean on in times of good or bad.
We're really happy to have you back, Tyci. When you moved to WoW, it was I mean, quite literally, you're going and playing in the afterlife. You fucking died for us. I was just like, and yeah, no, game shit. But yeah, I guess another question, because I mean, I feel like this is my one question I ask a lot of people about Endwalker. What's the one ability you're fucking hyped about? The one ability you saw in Endwalker?
I feel like it's cliche to say the new Sam finisher, like the Omega Madare. But
God.
But I'm going to pull probably something that you weren't expecting. And you're gonna meme on me. And everyone's probably gonna meme on me for this. I'm actually super excited to see how the Scholar Movement ability plays out. I know that's really underwhelming. I know it's not flashy, but every single time, and I have a good justification for this, every single time that there has been some form of raid mobility added to a class in World of Warcraft, that class has been mandatory like 99% of the time. And I'm curious how strong it's going to be and how much effect it's going to have, not necessarily in prog, but in speeds.
All right, that makes a lot of sense actually, because I do know in WoW, like it's like there are several jobs that have the expedient effect and can like boost the party movement, and sometimes it's like critical.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like some party-based movements, like Warlock portals.
Warlock Gates
That
are
shit's
like, yeah.
tight.
Good example. Druid
wasn't-
Stampeding Roar, or whatever the hell
Yeah,
it's called.
yeah.
I forget the ability name, but yeah,
Wasn't it? There was it was Painsmith. Wasn't there a strat where you would jump off the edge and then
Click
you would
the
hit
portal.
the Warlock? Yeah,
Yeah.
to teleport through.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's something that's so janky it could never
So
exist.
I'm interested in seeing what comes of that, because like I know that like people were memeing on it and there's a bunch of memes, but it genuinely like intrigued me. I was like, wow, like I'm wondering, you know, first thing in my head that popped in my head is like, does this allow you to get an extra global before having to disengage? Is it going to be worth getting an extra global? Like, is that global going to matter in terms of the output that Scholar, or the output and things that Scholar bring to the raid? So I'm curious to see how it plays out. That's the thing that I'm most excited about, to be honest. And
yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of flashy abilities, I guess it would probably be like, yeah, the Paladin finisher thing looks fucking amazing. That was pretty hype.
That looks hype. Yeah, no, I have kind of similar because, well, one thing that's almost certainly gonna end up is it's not gonna be necessary to do a mechanic. kind of like how it is in
Yes,
WoW,
I
where
agree.
it's like dead ass required to have
Yeah.
those movement speeds mapped out to do certain mechanics well. But for the uptime and the greeting, I think the one thing that kind of worries me is like sprints on a 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can get a lot, and I mean, I think that's one of the things that really good players, especially melees and tanks, is sprints basically used on cooldown.
Yeah.
Like we use sprint all the time for everything.
Yeah.
But I think there are distinct mechanics this tier where we would have really liked expedient. E10S pull. That's a mechanic we want expedient on. Wall orbs expedient would have been helpful for a lot of jobs to make that more consistent tight. Though I know all the melees and everyone were already using it, but I think one thing that might get missed is it's a perfect time for the mitigation. Yeah, there's a lot of mechanics where I think both the movement would have been very helpful in addition to that mitigation because it's paired with it. It's a powerful, like Lions, X who just mentioned in chat would have been a good one. Viva Junction, huge. It would have been huge in that mechanic too. God, what else?
Do we know if it stacks with sprint? Like, is that?
It does not, I
Okay, I
believe.
would
I think
assume
it is.
not, but I didn't know if that was.
Assuming, I don't think movement skills have ever stacked in Shadowbringers.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
might be
Like
wrong.
Kalita just said it too. Yeah, so I'm curious.
Yeah, maybe someone just like mod check me there, but I
Yeah.
don't believe any ability has ever movement skill based ability has ever stacked.
I think you're right. Yeah, like Paladin doesn't stack with sprint, right?
Yeah, I think someone mapped it out or found out. I think Momo in his videos about Scholar found that, or at least reported that it was the same as it is an extra sprint. So yeah, but yeah, no, that's a hive ability. I kind of have two.
Go for it.
I'm gonna go with the big one first, which is Macrocosmo Astro.
I think it's insane. The first thing that I thought of when I saw that ability was so Holy Priest in WoW has, I forget the name of the ability, but it's a big ass ability that essentially is like on 8-minute cooldown or some ridiculous cooldown.
Is it the prayer thing?
Yeah, it's like a massive heal and it puts like a shit ton of hots on like the whole raid. It's ridiculous.
Oh, and they're the ones that fucking bounce too.
Yeah, the prayer mending, it puts like prayer mending, it puts like renew, like all these different things on people, and it's insane.
Yeah,
that was the
and
first thing that I thought of when I saw that ability. So yeah, that ability looks crazy.
And it maxes out to like 100% healing. So if you're in like a J-Way situation, it is just absolutely the high end power of it is very high.
I think that they were like, oh, Astro is strong, let's just give them this other ridiculous ability.
It's gonna be a high skill, like high reward ability when you think of very good time. And I think the most subtle detail that I really love about it is it's on a GCD. It replaces a Malefic, but it's at the same equal value. So unless you have multiple targets, you can just replace a Malefic with it, which means that you don't really have to use it at any point. In like a regular standard raid boss, like you can really allocate it, but it also doesn't take up weave slots. I think a lot of the really big mechanics that it would be used for, like Lion, to really keep people up during Lion. God, it could have revolutionized Lions, because then you can have your Dark Knight eat multiple big lions with Living Dead. That was actually a strat where you would have your and you would just like in speeds you would just have your Dark Knight just eat multiple lions and use Living Dead, and you just kill it before Living Dead expires. But you could use that because of all the damage that Dark Knight is taking with the Living Dead. It depends if it counts overkill. That'd be an interesting thing. If you overkilled, then you would easily fit the 100% requirement. But yeah, macro, like you have all the other healer, like I think that's the only one that's like stands out is like an absolute, like you got like, I don't know, maybe the Shealers on Sage, like Haima is a little weird, but I guess it's just not as interesting.
It was an interesting ability. I like, I had to read it like 7 times before I was like, oh shit, okay, like I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see how it plays out, but it looks
Yeah,
strong is
yeah.
all I'm saying.
Oh, but so that's the one that I think could be the craziest ability, but I
Mhm.
think the deadass most powerful ability that is coming in Endwalker is Arcane Crest.
Is that the Reaper
It is the
ability?
Reaper personal
The
mitigation.
yeah, okay, yeah.
It's the self TVN that when popped
It
gives a heal over
shield
time
to
effect.
your group, the whole group, right?
Yeah, a
Yeah,
heal over time.
and I think you had worked out the potency for that or something,
It
didn't
is
you?
approximately 4,000 healing potency if you're the whole dot expires, not including. So like Reaper HP, I remember was like pretty small, like 3K, right?
Yeah.
So that's a or 30K, sorry, and so that's a 3K. So
Yeah.
that's on the chunk. I remember looking at some of the warrior heal values, and their nascent flash or thing is 400. When you I think it actually does matter if you crit with the ability. But that goes up to like 600. And that's healing for about 6,000 pop. Like you can, I think the rough numbers that I did was that, 100 potency is about 1,000 healing. Um,
Napkin math.
so you have basically an entire tank's health bar getting restored across the party in
Wild.
Endwalker. Or
Is
yeah,
that
like
I'm assuming that's off global?
it is. Oh my god, I'm gonna check right now. If it's on a global cooldown, fuck, it's dead. It's a dead skill. But no, I think it's God, that's actually that's the other thing. I keep forgetting to check insanity check if it's global off cooldown. But no, it's and it's on 30 seconds. So you can use this twice a minute if you can
30
find the pops.
seconds is just like
Like I
what
think
were they thinking?
definitely in when groups start to optimize with a Reaper, and like if the Reaper isn't using this ability, the healers are gonna
They're
like
gonna be mad.
fucking neck.
Yeah, they're gonna be very
They're
angry.
yeah, yeah. No, they're gonna. That's a very substantial amount of healing.
Yeah.
Where yeah,
They're
I
gonna
think
be
it's.
more angry than Saren was at me for not having Feint on my hotbar.
I mean. I mean, I think that would have flown pretty well this tier.
Uh, that was
Uh,
a good meme.
Hey, I mean, at least in Endwalker, your feint's gonna be 5% on magic.
Hey man, it'll be something. I'm helping.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But yeah, I guess we already talked about the biggest letdowns. I don't know. My pivot top hits. That's like the one question I love asking about Endwalker is like, what's that big skill?
Yeah.
Or like that one. Mega Madara looks sick.
It does look sick. I also am. That's another thing that I'm curious about too. Like, I look through the Sam abilities and some of the other melee abilities. Like, all these have AOE. It's like I hope that I personally do not like cleave and or AOE fights in raids. I think they are very boring. I think that padding is annoying and I hate doing it. And I just like single target fights. I think they're more fun and they feel better to do. And I keep seeing all these AoE abilities getting added. And I'm just like really worried. I don't know if it's just for, adding some spice to dungeons and adding some more flavor to playing those classes in dungeons. I think the changes that they made to Samurai with like getting your buffs from just casting your sticker abilities is really, I don't know what they're called, but the sticker abilities is really nice. And it's a good quality of life change, but I'm just kind of worried. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think they always talk about the AoE things and then it ends up never being a thing. Though I guess Ultimate T had a lot of cleave.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think it might pay out in Ultimate, but I think also the tuning on Ultimate is different. I don't know. Ultimate's just like different. It's a different beast.
Yeah, it's a much different environment for sure. For sure. But yeah, that was a good talk. I don't want to cut you off if you had any like other questions. Like you were very well spoken and you answered the questions very thoroughly. I appreciate it. It was a great talk. I had a good time.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me. It was a great time. We need to get everyone on Sleepo here at some point.
I feel like it's inevitable, honestly. Everyone, I love everyone in Sleepo. They're all super cool and they're all good players. So I'm more than happy to talk with any of them that wants to come on here. And they're all my friends, so it makes it even easier.
Maybe if we have an insane week 1, and we do really well, we can all end up on a bigger, like a super big podcast as a team.
That'd be cool.
And then we just
stream our party that we have.
Ditch them and have our own party at the same time.
But all right, I'm done, so I'll go ahead and cut it there. If you showed up late or if you're interested or you're only catching the end of this, I will upload this to YouTube, my YouTube channel later on. Probably sometime tomorrow with timestamps. Oh, were you?
Tyci, did you remember to record this in OBS?
I did.
You fucking potato.
I did. Yes.
Okay. I was
last
to remind.
Last time when I interviewed Harumi, I forgot to record in OBS. It took like an hour to download the VOD off of Twitch. It was such a pain in the ass. But yeah, so I'll put this up on YouTube probably tomorrow. That'll have timestamps and everything so you can skip around. I do these usually every other week, sometime between Thursday and Saturday. It kind of depends on people's schedules. So if you liked this, look forward to it. And if you didn't, then that's okay too. You don't have to enjoy everything. If you do have any feedback for these kind of segments, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to kind of improve upon these. Still kind of new to it and I enjoy doing them. So whatever can improve the quality of life for you guys that are watching would be much appreciated feedback. Thank you for everyone that watched. Thank you, Exu, for the raid and host. And thank you, Daiso for the 6 tier 1 gifteds. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good night. Thanks, Apollo, again. You're amazing. And
you too, buddy.
I'll see y'all later. Bye.